Hi, I'm Corrine Coppola from the Safe Community Coalition Mental Health Committee, and I am so excited, thrilled to be speaking with Lauren Anderson of Our Minds Matter, talking about supporting our teen through COVID-19. So welcome, Lauren. It's really wonderful to have you with us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work in Our Minds Matter?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm delighted to be here and to be having a conversation with you, Corrine. As you mentioned, I am Executive Director of Our Minds Matter. It's an organization that actually was formerly known as the Josh Anderson Foundation, named after my brother Josh, who died by suicide in 2009. And so Our Minds Matter basically works to engage students in the conversation around mental health. So our organization equips teens at their school to form a club, a Minds Matter club, and provide them with all of the resources and support so that they can really make a difference in their school community around improving key protective factors for mental health. So increasing social connection, help-seeking behavior, so that's reducing stigma, being aware of resources available to them, as well as pro-social behavior, so the ability to support a friend or peer who needs that support.
Wonderful. So tell me a little bit about what your club is doing to navigate during COVID-19. Like, how are you adjusting your programming, and what are you seeing with the teens nowadays?
Yeah, so as we all know, we've had to make a lot of significant changes this year. And the bread and butter of our program was, students gathering in the four walls of their high school and meeting in person to, conduct activities and have discussion around the topics I mentioned before. But the key thing there is it's all related to discussion for the most part. And so that can translate pretty well to a virtual platform. I mean, yes, you miss some of the being in person, but we've seen our clubs still meeting in virtual rooms on Zoom, on Google Hangouts with their staff sponsor, having that oversight and still being able to engage in these conversations. Also, a lot of our clubs, as teenagers are active on social media. And so we've even, as an organization, been proactively putting together social media campaigns around, we did one in the summer over Pride. We just did a Men's Mental Health Month campaign, and providing these clubs with all of those resources and tools to reshare and promote on their social media networks.
Wonderful. Tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing with the teens, and perhaps how, what their needs are, and how parents, as I am one of teen and young adults, how we can better help facilitate some of the protective factors you were speaking of, because there is this fear or anxiety that we as parents have about social connections, and how can we support them best?
Yes. I think, as kind of mentioned before, the routine is different, right? So teens are used to getting up, going somewhere outside of the home, being around peers, being around friends, being around other adults in their life. And now it's a lot more happening within the home, right? Mm-hmm. I was having a conversation with a clinician actually who works with teens, and we were talking about this idea of having a little bit more flexibility in the home. And so, for instance, we kind of can generally sometimes have like a negative connotation with all the social media, like the TikTok and the Instagram and all the video platforms, right? And kind of think, if my kid or teen is channeled, zoned in, that's a negative thing. Well, maybe it's having a little bit more curiosity, not necessarily having it so black and white, and sort of seeing, like, what are they engaging with on that platform? And it might actually be that that's the way that they're connecting with a peer group that, is kind of the way that it's happening right now in, virtual platforms when they can't physically be with their friends in person.
I love what you said about that. Like, I have actually become a big fan of TikTok. And I've noticed that my stream is really much more positive and uplifting because that's the type of work I do. And so I think you really, hit the nail on the head in terms of how can we connect and be curious instead of having this fear-based experience and then reflecting that, onto our children. Can you tell me a little bit about what maybe teens are needing in terms of the upcoming holidays? There'll be this break from school. There's no, or there's less structure, potentially no structure during this time, and heading into the winter months, where we ourselves might be feeling a little depressed and sad and anxious. Any ideas how we might be able to support them better?
Yeah. So I think a thing that you mentioned that is key is this kind of lack of structure, lack of, again, going out of the home and coming back into the home. It's more happening all there. So we have a lot more eyes on what's happening, both from parent to teen and teen to parent. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity actually for kind of shared learning of, for instance, you mentioned, and this is something that we can all have during the winter time and it getting dark earlier, right? Our mood, shifting and changing, or just the stress of the holidays, and for that to be maybe a way to have that conversation about that. Like, I'm feeling really stressed. Parent can say that. I'm feeling really stressed. I need to go out and do a walk. Do you want to come and do a walk, go on a walk with me? So having those opportunities to kind of acknowledge when stress is high or mood is in a certain place. And that's a reflective kind of behavior then of it's okay to say that we're not doing okay and to then engage in a more kind of positive coping, skill or method. So
Great. Can you tell me a little bit more about, if we see our teen a little bit maybe struggling, how do the teens, what are they saying that they are needing from their parents, perhaps, that maybe we as parents, can't experience because we are the parent, right? What is their preference in terms of how we approach them?
What we hear from teens a lot is that their parents, don't understand them, or they don't really take what they're going through seriously. And then there's the additional kind of sometimes cultural elements or just different things in the family around mental health and their need, being in need to maybe seek support from professionals. And that's a, stigma that we're continuously trying to break down, right? That mental health is just like physical health. So in a way that you wouldn't ignore a problem going on in your physical health and seek, the right medical treatment. Similarly for our mental health, when we're experiencing really differences in mood or energy or just our thought patterns. I mean, those are things that it might be time to kind of seek that treatment outside in terms of a mental health professional. And one thing that is improving in this time of, being in a virtual world is actually people accessing services a little bit more, which is interesting, right? Because you think, we're not going outside of the home, et cetera. But all of these online platforms and the ability to see people from your home, there's a little bit more time and flexibility to do that. So that's a good thing, and I think we want to continue to encourage that.
Great. And maybe some top, 1, 2, 3 recommendations you would have for a parent during this time and supporting their teens. Like, what are best practices that I as a parent can use with my teen?
Yeah. So I think, as mentioned before, having that flexibility, having the kind of, as opposed to just having the stringent rules, more so understanding, like, why are you engaging in this, and can we talk about that? I think that leads directly into the second point, which I would say as much as having that open communication. And I think it can be easy when it's coming from a parent saying, hey, I've been feeling this way in terms of maybe mood, energy, or, stress, and I know that I need to maybe change some of my behaviors, or I know I've been spending too much time behind the screen, I need to move my body more. And I think that because so much time is spent in the home, if the teen can see that modeling from the parent, then they're more encouraged, I think, to share similar things. Like, yeah, I've been feeling really sad because I can't see my friends. And having that openness of communication, I think, is super key.
Yeah, I really like what you said about, the flexibility and the communication, because I think, when our fear is driving us as the adult and wanting to make sure that our kid's okay, it's so important for us to be okay, because that carries over to them more than anything else. Is like, hey, I'm struggling, hey, I'm having a rough day, what is it that I'm needing? And then really speaking to that allows them and gives them the freedom. I'm going to take care of myself today. I'm going to let the rest of the work I have to do because I need a walk right now. I'm really needing a walk. But just really, I think, speaking that out loud, and as parents, we want to feel like, oh, we have it all together, right? And the more that we can show that, hey, we have cracks and we can repair them, gives them the confidence that they can repair them too. Sort of like, I don't know, I heard this week, sort of like step away from the vehicle, like giving this hands-off yet supportive approach to our children, and the more we can model it. So I'm really pleased to hear that that's really what the teens need. What are your hopes for Our Minds Matter, in the new year in terms of mental health support and teens? Where do you see it going? Because I think you all are in, you have 85 schools now? That's incredible.
Yeah, close to that, and we have many schools in the DC metro area. So we work closely with Fairfax County Public Schools, Montgomery County Public Schools, and some of the neighboring school districts and private schools. And so I think continuing to support those schools. One thing that I would like to see carry through from 2020 to the next year is mental health has been more top of mind. I mean, I think schools, school administrators, staff have been, kind of recognizing, wow, like we have to support our students right now with their mental health, their social emotional learning, that's being prioritized. And I think that that's almost a reactive state. And we need to continue to be in a proactive, preventative state of these things should always be prioritized, that the social emotional learning skills of students, in building those up, that's ultimately going to improve their academic, success and just overall well-being as a student. Similarly with mental health and mental well-being, if we can proactively support those things, then students will have that kind of buffer to face those challenges. So I would, want to continue to see that type of commitment, dedication, engagement around mental health that we are seeing right now, which is good because we need it, right? As the stress is really high, as we're in an unprecedented year, but for that to continue even beyond when things go back to more of a normal state.
And I love what you say in terms, we've had a lot of conversations about how physical health, if we had a fever or a tummy ache or something wrong with us physically, we would seek out a doctor and we would seek that medication, that would make us feel better. We wouldn't say, oh no, I'm not going to take that, I'm going to white knuckle it through. And the same with mental health. It's so important for us to really be aware and mindful about what are we needing to take care of ourselves mentally as well as physically. So I really appreciate all the beautiful work that you all are doing in the world, and I look forward to a lovely 2021.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.